Good morning. On behalf of CBIA, thank you for joining us today. We're pleased to have with us Darlene Susko, the owner of ID Susko, who will present our webinar titled Brand Tune-Up for Mobile Web Performance. Darlene is the owner of ID Susko, a branding agency in West Hartford that works with small businesses and startups to create or refresh messaging for a digital and mobile world. Her experience ranges from naming products and creating brand communications for B2C startups like Arcus Golf, an award-winning connected tech product, to updating EMC2 brand voice for their B2B partner programs. Darlene named and created the visual brand and voice for Teen Cultures Connect, a recently formed nonprofit that sponsored the first USA to Cuba Goodwill Baseball program this year, and continues to provide marketing and communication support as a founding board member. Before we begin, I would like to ask that Darlene will take questions after her presentation. However, please feel free to submit your questions in the dialog box that is in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And as I mentioned at the end of the presentation, Darlene will answer all questions at that time. Thank you. Darlene?
Good morning. Thank you for joining today on this lovely, steamy August Connecticut day. This is the perfect thing to be doing, to look at how to tune up a brand or get a brand going simply online in a website that is responsive. We're going to start out with probably a lot of statistics, and the reason they're there is that some of you may have to make the case to other people, that you may not be able to make the decision on your own to go off on this path or to take it on as a project, and I just want to make sure that you have the information that you need to convince others. This is really for startups and smaller businesses, certainly not enterprise level like CBIA, which is very complicated, an online presence. And we're not going to really address B2C today because even though a lot of the same steps are necessary for B2C, the focus and persuasion of consumers versus a business client are slightly different. So I didn't want to get off on that tangent today. So the first thing is Phil sent out, or CBIA sent out a worksheet to you. You won't need it for the presentation, but if you want to have it open, you might be able to just use it to jot down some questions along the way. And there will be some goodies for you and a link at the end, or the address at the end of the workbook where you can get some other downloads about today's presentation and some additional tools and references. So starting out, the important thing to understand as a small business person is that you're not alone, that a lot of small businesses don't even have websites, and a lot of them are not mobile friendly, and we need to really look at making your business as credible as possible online. The other thing that we're challenged with as small businesses is really the time to plan and spend on marketing ends up getting eaten up by other things. I know that's true for me, and you know, this is what I do for a living, and I still have a hard time getting around to doing what I need to do on my site. In another small study, businesses were asked what were the most difficult tasks. And the first three here, website maintenance, SEO, blogging, and content, make up 46% of the time that's needed, and it's also the three things that are the most important to do in order to have some kind of a presence or be found online. So by simply, I mean breaking it down into manageable steps. And that means to just look at what you absolutely need to do right now to create or update your site to be useful on mobile devices. The right now idea is what we used to call an MVP, the minimal viable product. And it's like, what can you put up that will tell enough of your story and be relevant enough to allow you to publish early and to continue to build out and build depth in your site as you go along, but not wait till the end. It's much easier to get something up there and to iterate frequently, and it's a lot less daunting, too. And by budget, the tools I want to give you today will have you spending more time than money, and I know time is also a rare commodity with us small business owners, but sometimes it's a lot easier to make the case for spending time than it is to dig into the checking account. And there are some things along the way, like there are bits and pieces of this where you can decide that you want to get some outside help, and rather than create a situation where the entire project is outsourced to an agency, you actually can buy bits of expertise along the way that will keep your costs down. One of the things that we struggle with all the time in daily life is communication. It's like using a word and you think it knows what it means, but someone is hearing it in a different way. So just to level set about what we're doing here today, we're talking about responsive websites. And responsive means that it's your website, but it can be readable on any size screen. The three terms that get convoluted are a mobile site, mobile app, and a responsive site. So a mobile site is a standalone site. It's a minification or edited version of your main site. If you haven't touched your site in months or years, or you don't have a responsive site, this isn't something that you should even be considering, because it's just it's adding on a layer of sophistication and complexity that you just don't need. A mobile app, it's like that's kind of the rage today. Everybody wants an app. The only real purpose of an app is to take some kind of a function or interaction with your customer or audience that can be simplified and made direct, so they can download an app, go directly to that set of functions without having to click through your main site. And a typical example of that would be an airline. Not that did Delta any good this week, but it's like when you go online, you're on the site and you find your flights and figure out what you want to do and purchase. When you download the app, you can then just go directly there to do your seat assignment and check in and have your boarding pass all on your phone. So that's an example of how app can benefit a company. Typically with small businesses, that's not the case, but on a case-by-case basis, it could be. A responsive site, as I said, is your full site, your main site, that is readable and adjusts for any screen size that someone wants to see it on. And that is the simplest undertaking in order to get a mobile presence and to update your main site all at the same time. So responsive devices, here's an array of desktop down to smartphone. And you can see how the same content adjusts slightly in order to be readable. And when you get over to the tablet size, you can see that the paragraphs are narrowing, and when you get down to the phone size, you can see that those three sections are now stacked on top of each other, and that's just typical. Even as few as 5 years ago, the idea of creating a site that looked good and adjusted to all of the possible screen size was hugely expensive because the code had to be adjusted for each screen size and it had to be done manually. And now that there are other alternatives, the cost has come way, way, way down. So why is the responsive site so important? Basically, it's because you want people to be able to find you, and when they find you, read what you have to say, and they are looking on mobile. I think we all recognize that the way we communicate is changing, and in your own life, it's like how many of you would rather get a text than a voicemail? And if you have kids with smartphones, do you ever really speak to them? I know it's much easier to get a response from text than it is to get someone to actually answer the phone, at least in our house. The Gallup poll of 1,000 adults over 18, measuring 50% with cell phones and 50% with landline, texting is the dominant way of communicating for people under 50. And I found that the age 50 mark to be higher than I expected. But that's why we do these things. Another study showed that Americans mostly use cell phones now and not landlines. The studies that I'm showing you, or the stats that I'm putting up here today, are from studies that have been done within the last 2 years. Just so you know that, we're looking for relevance. This isn't something that's going back even 5 years. The important year to remember is 2014, and that is when the number of searches on mobile exceeded the number of searches being done on desktop. And that was 2014. We're in 2016 now. There's no reason to believe that just has not continued as a trend. The most important thing is that you want to be where people are looking. And if they're looking first on mobile, you want to have a presence there. So in a Google and Millward Brown digital study of B2B path to purchase, comparing year 2012 with 2014, here are some of the things that they saw. There's a 91% increase in smartphone B buyers doing initial research. And 89% of buyers were accessing business-related content on mobile. This is the thing that we're finding now is that the amount of time spent on research for B2B buyers is getting longer. And the number of searches and the amount of looking around is getting greater. So the average 12 searches prior to engaging on a brand, that's pretty important to know. It's also important to know that that probably 70% of a decision will be made before anybody even goes to your site. So what we want is the resources that will allow you to spend the time and control the budget for getting to a mobile presence. As with most things, if you have the right tools, you can build almost anything. And as I said before, if you get stuck, you can always reach out and get some help for a quick section or a more comprehensive approach. So here's my grandfather, Otto. And when I talk about tools, he was my introduction. He had a workshop in our basement and every tool you can imagine. He showed me how to make my own set of blocks from wood scraps when I was still young enough to want them. And that may have set the stage for my DIY approach to life, or it might just have been the first instance of a hardwired character trait. But the point from one small business person to another is that no one is in a better position to create what you want or to create your site than you are. And I urge you not to think of it as one more monumental task. Think of it as repurposing stuff you already know and already have. We're just going to put it all in a logical order and frame it in the best way we can for the people we want to get that information to. So in order to do that, I'm going to give you your own building blocks, 5 of them, and these are the brand tune-up tools. We have technology, conversation, brand aid, form, and function. Technology are the tools you need to create your mobile presence, and this is a game changer for budgets and maintenance. Conversation, this is really important because I think we often get caught up in what we want to do for people and forget that what we want to do for them might not be what they need at the moment or what they're most interested in. So in conversation, we're going to look at customers and competitors, who they are, what they're talking about, and what they need and want. And I'll give you the tools and resources to get at that information. Brand aid, brands are made up of humans. So when you're thinking of your company and what you do, just be human, be approachable, and try to connect emotionally, even if you're not doing an emotional product or service. Form is, the goal really here is scannable copy, something that people can move through really quickly and pick up the high points. And then the structure of it is like you hook them in with the high points, they go a little bit deeper, and then around the third level of information delivery is where you would put the real hard-hitting details of what you do, because they're already interested. You don't want to lead with all of that content. You want to make it easy for them to get to what they want. And function, Google did a study and has a publication, and there's a link to it in your workbook, your worksheets, and they call it micro moments. And function is that you want to be and connect to your customer wherever they happen to be at the moment, and have all these multiple touch points. And that, over time, is what leads to trusting a brand and a consistent customer. So first is technology. You all probably have, in some form or another, used or are using as-a-service models. The most obvious one being cloud storage. To not have to own the server and the storage, maintain it, update it, all of those things. You can buy that service and expect that your content will be secure, that it will be on state-of-the-art and maintained server, and that is the service that you're buying. So you don't have to have that anymore. Software as a service is another. For people like me, I use the Adobe suite of all the creative softwares. You can't own those anymore. You have to license it and connect to them online, and that's that's limiting. But then you're always getting the updates. You're always current. You always have the most power at your fingertips. And when you don't have to think about things like that, it makes your focus come in and be on the things that you actually should and need to be doing. And how that relates to your website platform is that you don't, it's like if we think of the website as a way to communicate, you don't have to build the phone before you make the call now. You can just go to a platform and layer your information into it and be up to speed. Here are some of the web building services that are out there. And one of the real benefits to using one of these services is that if you stay with their templates, make very few adjustments to how the template looks and what it does, you're buying accountability and hosting at the same time. The templates are free. You don't have to spend any money for that. And then the hosting, for a basic site that's not e-commerce or doing, huge amounts of payment processing, is less than $200 a year. And that's seriously reduced from the most basic cost of hosting like a WordPress theme is around $50 a month. So it's a considerable savings in hosting. And you're also buying accountability because nobody can point fingers at everybody else. And I've been in lots and lots of those conversations where the host says it's the website and the template, like in WordPress, it points at it being a developer problem, and they all are pointing at each other and nothing gets resolved. And so I just think if you can use a template, and if that does 85% of what you need it to do, then buy accountability by all means. With all of these services, with the exception of Squarespace, not every one of the other templates is responsive, and that is the first criteria that you want to look for before you look at what something looks like or what other functions it may have that you need. Here's something that I get questions about all the time. It's like, well, templates all look alike, and I want to look, I want to stand out from the crowd. Well, templates all look alike for a reason, and it's not the one you think. It's designers can create infinite varieties of how something looks and how it's going to operate. But the most important thing about good website design is that it be a good experience for the user. And it's something called UX, user experience. And what you want to do there is put things in a place where the user intuitively knows what to do, where to go, and how to navigate, that they don't have to learn something new. So you'll see that 3 out of 4 of these screens, the logo is in the upper left corner. The navigation areas are along the top. Search and login is also in the top part of the screen. That's because that's what we expect. And there's really no reason to do it another way, because, the book, I think it's called Zag, when everyone else is zigging, you want to zag. This is not the place to zag. What you want to do here, one of my clients, for instance, had a website done a couple of years ago, and I was still at the big agency then, so I couldn't help them with it. Their budget didn't allow that. And what they ended up doing is, and they insisted that their design firm, instead of putting their name in the upper corner, they have this decorative scroll. And it's like, well, that doesn't help anybody know where they are. And I've been having this conversation with them now for a couple of months, that they're not doing themselves any favors by not having their name on the actual website in the header. That doesn't help anyone. So hopefully I'll win that argument shortly. But the idea that, everyone does it that way and we're just going to put our symbol up there because that'll be different, not a good rationale. Let me just... So I talked a little bit about, it's like how to choose a theme. And this is, last year, a couple of us got together and came up with this nonprofit, Teen Cultures Connect concept, to be a sponsoring nonprofit for the Cuba Baseball Diplomacy Program. and putting something together. Obviously, we had no budget at that point. We hadn't even raised a penny. We're all volunteer. And we looked at, it's like we needed an online presence, and so the criteria that became important, first, of course, was that it be responsive and work on mobile. The second most important thing for us was a flexible donation module and easy payment processing with the lowest fees possible. And we also obviously needed the integration of graphics, images, videos, file downloads. And another important criteria was it would be easily editable by others, because I wasn't going to be the only person who could maintain this. There had to be a few of us who could go in and add content as needed. So this particular template is from Squarespace, and I chose that because it had a super powerful and super simple donation module on adding of buttons, and we were able to create donations that went specifically to players that we could separate from, you know, a regular donor and a sponsorship, and two different kinds of levels of giving and benefits. Control the acknowledgement, make sure that the tax information for a 501c3 receipt was available. All of those details Squarespace handled beautifully. But there were drawbacks, and there are drawbacks to all of these. So you have to really understand what's important and what you can sort of get around. I mean, I really don't like the way this handles video, for example. It's like I can't control how that thumbnail is hosted. It's like whatever size is embedded, it's how it comes into the site. So it's visually disjointed. And I always want things to be elegant, but that's not the point for this. And you know, sometimes it is more important than others, and here it wasn't that important. It was more important that we get a lot of visuals up and have a real in-depth press page, things like that. So templates definitely have their limits, and that's why it's so important to come up with your criteria before you look at it. Now here's a site/service that I highly recommend. And Website Builder Expert is a place that you can go. As you can see here, you can compare the different web builder brands. You can take a quiz and see which one might be best for you based on, again, your criteria. And then you can take a look at, you know, what your absolute function needs are and what ones you can live without, and making your decision on what template to use. So conversation. This is about customer and competitor research and what people are looking for. And again, it's so important to remember that you're always talking to people. You know, even though all the technology I just talked about has hugely changed in the last couple of years, what hasn't changed is that people are the ones who are looking for information. And it's true now as it was always. They don't want to be sold. So what we're aiming at here is to figure out what it is about your brand that's important and figure out what they want. So the first part is who are you talking to, and this is defining the customer that you have, but also the customer that you want, and who's going and knowing the difference, so that you can, you know, always be building with the things that are going to be beneficial to you too. And the only way to do this is to ask. it's conversation, it's person to person. But if you're going to be talking to your customers and your best customers, sometimes it's better to have a neutral third party or someone other than the salesperson or project manager talk to the customer. When I conduct interviews like this, I use the term saying, we want to share confidence. And what that does is that frees people up to be candid, and because they're going to be anonymous in the follow-up. And what you really want to do here is just to ask as many open-ended questions as you can, be patient, and ask follow-up questions. And follow-up questions only come when you're actually really listening. There's a huge temptation in this sort of endeavor to really start selling people, and you just want to fight that. Just every time you think you want to tell them how great your brand is, stop, ask them another question. When you're finding out what they're looking for, what you want to get to is what are the general terms around your products and services, how other people describe them, not how you describe them, because that's how they're going to be searching for them. And once you find those lists of words and terms and thoughts and ideas, you can test them and measure them in tools like Google Trends or SpyFu and Screaming Frog. And yes, I did say those names in a row, and the context of serious business. That's just how we do now. And who are your competitors? Now, this analysis is not about business model or structures or any other thing. This is just about their marketing presence and how they're communicating and where they are online. This combination of guides of who your competitors are, what are your customers searching for, who are your customers, all of that research can be done by somebody else. You don't have to do it yourself, and sometimes it's more efficient to have someone else do it because learning the tools, getting the information, and then analyzing the information can be a long learning curve. So this might be one of the places that you think about bringing in a consultant to help you with that. CBIA. So CBIA was the first account that I worked on when I worked at a larger agency in New Haven, where I'm still a partner, but I like doing this better, just dealing directly with small businesses. But CBIA was my accountant, and I was in charge of figuring out what their leadership wanted, what their customers wanted, what their members were looking for. And their members, going from super enterprise to small business, there are a lot of different focuses that everyone needs at different points in time. But all of that information, as well as a content survey or content audit, showed this ton of content, but it was organized the way the company had grown. And that's what made most sense from a company point of view, is that you would have all, things segmented by the departments that you've defined. But from a membership point of view, nobody knew what your departments were, so they couldn't really get at information they might want if they didn't know where to look for it. So we really reorganized how the content was structured and how people could actually most easily learn about what they could actually get here. So Brand Aid. You can go on Amazon and put in branding books, and you'll get over 7,000 results. But I promise you, there's nothing really different about any one of them. even when they contradict each other, from branding for dummies to branding is sex, they all aim to get you to the same place. And that is, what makes you so different and why should I care? Simple, you've probably known this forever, that it's like differentiator and benefit. That's what you need to ultimately focus in on. If you're like me, I'm comforted by books. I love them, and I love information. It's probably the best branding book that I've come upon because it's simply written, streamlined, jargon-free, thorough, and it has recent case studies and resources. Oh, and it's really, really pretty. Which, that matters. If you're moving through information, it's really easy to get these complex ideas and understand them because they're broken out into such small modules. The brand tune-up is just looking under the hood and measuring 3 simple things. These are simple questions, but the answers can be complex. But you want to get your leadership, sales, marketing, service providers, and even clients together to answer these. It's like when you get the answer to these, then you look at, do these answers still coincide with the original mission and the original vision and values? You can't expect your mission to change over time and the vision to change as the company evolves and everyone progresses, but values typically don't change. And another thing is that mission, vision, and value statements, those are content for you. Those are internal messages and they're standards that you set, that you measure new ideas and new directions against to make sure that, you're staying on topic. The USP, or unique selling proposition, is a theme that you build your site and contract around because this is your promise. This is the soul of what you want people to know about you. Trevive is a new brand that I was fortunate enough to work on, be able to name, and I'm just using this right now to give you an idea of what a mission statement looks like and what a vision statement looks like. Values. Values are an interesting thing in the context of this because Trevive has values in terms of what they want to provide and the level of service they want to provide it at. But what's going to happen with this brand is each community is going to evolve and create its own set of values. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to see as these residences come online and take on personalities of their own. Trevive, by the way, is a name that I came up with, and it's based on looking at life instead of as there being, the career years and then retirement, because retirement is such a negative concept, and it looks at life in terms of 3 acts, like a 3-act play, and the structure of the 3rd act is where a lot of things happen, and plot twists, and new things happen, and life gets complicated, and then it resolves. And that's really what we wanted to get across. Is that so Trevive being 3rd life or 3rd act is a place for exploration and excitement, not just folding up and going to play golf. Trevive's USP really is its differentiator. Like this is a community that's located in urban areas, it's not a recreational focus, it's an intellectual culture focus. So here's where we have developed voice. I'm just going to hit on voice a little bit because I know, we've been going a while now. It's been going about 40 minutes, and I want to make sure that you get we get to your questions and can wrap things up. But the voice is, to think of a voice, we want your brand to be emotionally connected. We want you to be able to talk about what you do in a relatable, person-to-person way. And so for Travis, being over 55 and going into golden years and aging in grace and all those wonderful things, the voice is female. Females live longer than males. That's where we are right now. And what we wanted for that person or that personality to convey is the excitement of being a person who, at no matter what point in their life, is always wondering what's next and is excited by the next thing to learn or know or do or be. Now, contrasting that with a site that I'm currently wrapping up, it's a content site, it's a calendar, a comprehensive events calendar, and e-commerce portal for Provincetown. So the brand here, she's very upbeat and a little philosophical and imbued with all this wisdom and life experience. When you get to P. Tony's voice, it gets a little edgier. It's fun, but it's definitely a little edgier. Taglines. Didn't want to skip taglines. They're not essential, but when you can actually come up with one that does a really good job, they really do work for you. So for Pete County, with a nod towards it still being a major LGBTQ and any other alphabet letters you want environment, and playing on just the socialization and party aspect, our tagline became "Don't miss a trick." Another brand. Oops, just got off my arrow there. Sportech. Sportech is it makes digital products for the racing industry, and horse racing language has come into popular language and has been here for a long time. So the tagline here for having the most up-to-date betting, processing, payment systems is staying ahead of the action, so that you're always processing no matter what the volume is. And then on their error page, it's a 404 page. If you happen to ask for something that doesn't exist, you get an error page. There says scratch. This page is no longer in the run-in. Please return to the starting gate. So really there you could have fun with language that is specific to the industry, in this case horse racing, but also part of popular culture, so it still communicates. Form is writing content. How many pages do you need? Roughly 8. Of those, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are really mechanical. 1, 2, and 3 need some looking at, and 4 is a blog or your content area that will be evolving. So writing, I don't want to simplify what is for many people very daunting, but I do want to share with you that very few people really like to write. Even writers don't like to write, but everybody feels great once they've written. So that's what we're aiming for. And if this is a barrier for you, or if this is something that just puts up walls all over, hire somebody to help you do it. It's not going to be a huge deal once you understand what needs to be in your site. And this is another benefit. It's like we really want you to be writing less and saying more. Here's an example. You're not writing jokes, and nobody wants to wait for the punchline on mobile or on your site. So the aim is to always simplify and lead with the benefit. Lead with the thing that people are looking for. Another idea is to just use short sentences and no jargon or cliches. It doesn't help. It doesn't help you to create dense copy that's very tech savvy and dense, because people are looking for something that you might do. They're already assuming that you know what you're talking about. They're looking for solutions, and so the farther up and forward-facing those can be are the best. And one project that we did was for a company named Border Free. Well, we changed its name to Border Free. But in looking at their site, what they do is they provide a service that layers onto a company's e-commerce site that will allow them to sell internationally. And it's a turnkey solution. You don't have to change your site at all. It's really quite magical in a lot of ways and hugely technical and complex. So when we got to their site and we were looking at the brand refresh under the new name, what we determined through our discussion is that the real benefit was that the complexity of selling globally was simplified when Border Free was your agent in doing that. So their tagline became "Going Global, Simplified." And the conversation on the site, they had spent paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs in technical language, was reduced to just simple language. So we figure it out, we do it for you, we send you the check. Not a bad proposition. Here are a few more basics. The goal is to get your site published and focusing on keeping things brief. Benefits, short headlines. If you need more than 2 sentences to explain something, then break up the copy with subtext. Save technical details for the lowest level. Let people click through to them, but don't lead with them. As far as images are concerned, yes, you want images, but don't violate copyright law. Make sure the images that you use are high resolution and high quality, and avoid the cliche images of people on a phone or sitting at a conference table. In your worksheet, there's links to a number of free photo sites with beautiful images. I urge you to look through those and use that as a visual resource. It will save you a lot of money in licensing fees. And finally, if you do decide that this is something that you're perfectly comfortable taking on and you can write the whole thing yourself, I urge you to proofread carefully. I don't think there is an article or website that I've been on in the last year that I haven't found an error in. So there are free tools that you can take your copy and run them through. One that I like is Grammarly. There's a free version of it that does a really nice job of pointing out, missing words or tenses or all of those things in addition to spelling errors. Now, Iceberg copy is the behind-the-scenes content that search engines love and you will never see. This is an important part of building your site because this is, one of the major ways that it will index to search engines. It's also one of the things that you don't have to have in place before you publish. You can be working on this and your site can be up and you can all be moving together towards getting a nicely indexed site. Here's some of the things that search engines look for. Image alt tags are something that you probably don't hear a lot about, but if you create the content that describes your image, that's something that Google will index. And if you are doing a search and you put search terms in there that are relevant to your product, and somebody's looking for images, your images will come up. So it's pretty cool. Function. So this is after everything is built, after everything is online, your function. You want to be relevant and you want to be found. One of the quickest ways to get found is to write, present, and distribute content that people want to read, that gives them something that they want to know. And with mobile, being successful in those long-tail searches can really be beneficial. And staying in contact with a client, not just selling to them, but just putting information in front of them, inviting clients to be part of a discussion about if you're thinking about a new product or service, involve them early. They'll take ownership and they will love it. I told you about about the micro moments, and the first is to be useful and tell people what they want to know. The I want to go moments probably apply more to bricks and mortar locations than an online location, but like they want to know where you are, and if you're local, that matters. The I want to do refers to any kind of instruction you can provide that clarifies using a product or service that you have. And then finally, the I want to buy moments. Now, everybody wants to be at the I want to buy moments, but if you're at the other four moments, chances are that you'll be invited to this moment more frequently. So that's how to be useful, is to be where your customer is at these inquiring moments. Be quick. Whatever you do, your site has to be fast. It has to load in less than 3 seconds, or people will look elsewhere. It's ridiculously fast, but it's true. And finally, connecting the dots. When you have your focus and you know where you want to go, make sure that the entire company is organized around your goals so that all the teams have an understanding of who the ideal customer is, and all the teams know where to engage with that customer. So again, for the 5 tools to go responsive and tune up your brand. Technology, you want to be accessible with a responsive site. In conversation, listen to what users need. Your brand tune-up should sound like a person. The form of your content should be brief and scannable, and the function is to continue to be relevant after you publish. So thank you for your time today. I know everyone's really challenged with how much time you can spend doing things, and I appreciate the time that you've spent here. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Darlene, thank you very much for that presentation. We do have a few questions, as a matter of fact. The first one is, Darlene, this looks very complicated. How much time will it take?
That's a good question. It doesn't have to be complicated if you look at it in certain phases. So what you really want to do, as I talked about earlier, is to dissect, once you get all of your goals in place and what you'd like to have, dissect it down to the minimal amount that you can put online, and then aim to do that, and then just continue to iterate and do things on an ongoing basis instead of, allowing the whole idea of it to be overwhelming. How much time is dependent on the kind of business you have and what you need to be presenting.
Okay, thank you. The second one we have is, what if I can't find a template to do everything I need? What do you suggest?
Well, all of the web builder sites allow for some customization, and you would need a developer for that. But again, all of these sites also have resources that they can put you together with in order to get that tweaking that you want. I do urge you to simplify as much as possible what you want to do, and try to find something as closely aligned to the main criteria as you can get, and be willing to compromise a bit.
Okay. We do have one more. You didn't mention anything about social media. Isn't that important?
Yeah, good question again. Social media is important, but only if it's important to your customers and your audience. So one of the things that you look at in the customer research is, and the competitor research is, where are they looking for things online? Do they participate in social media? What platforms are they active on? And then once you understand what they're using, you can align your content strategy and social media strategy accordingly. But to just think that you have to be on Twitter or Facebook or Pinterest, that's not the truth. It only matters if your customers are going to be there.
Fair enough.
Is there any more questions, Phil?
Well, Don, that's it. So I'd like to thank you very much for that presentation. Very, very interesting. And I'd like to thank the audience for joining us this morning. On behalf of CBIA, I hope you have a good day, and hopefully you join us again for another webinar.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one.